One game that really affects Texas is the next one we're talking about. Maybe the best, I would say the best conference championship game that we're going to get, close with Oregon and Washington, but it's the SEC title game. It is number 1 Georgia against number 8 Alabama, 4 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. The playoff scenarios, we went over them before, but Georgia, it might be a win and in for both teams, but it definitely is for Georgia. Win and in for Georgia, but you can still make it with a loss. You probably need 2 of Michigan, Florida State, and Texas to lose, although they might put in Georgia if only one of them loses, honestly. So we'll see about that. Alabama potentially winning in, like we said before, but there's a chance that Texas gets in over them. So Alabama winning in, and it certainly wouldn't hurt if Michigan, Florida State, or Texas loses to assure Alabama of getting into the college football playoff. So probably winning in or potentially winning in, but it wouldn't hurt if one of those 3 teams lose as well. But ultimately, Don, what is the matchup that you're really looking forward to in this game?
I think this game is about the challenges for Alabama's defense. I don't have any answers right now on how to slow down Georgia's offense and how to slow down Carson Beck. Okay, he's 3rd in the country in overall and passing grade, best passing grade in the country on throws under 20 yards. Okay, I think that's a big one in this game. Alabama's really, really good at not giving up explosives. I think they have the best secondary in the country. I believe that. Front corners and safeties all included. But when you've got Beck working at such a high level, making quick reads, getting the ball out in 2.37 seconds, that's not just fast. That's like Tom Brady fast. That's legit. Like the ball is just in and out of his hands from the snap. Top 11 when in clean and pressured situations. Top 13 whether you blitz him or not. We haven't seen any holes from Carson Beck. I don't know what the answer is yet. And then Bama's run defense. Honestly, if you want to start somewhere with any team, you don't let them be 2-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And Bama's run defense, look, they gave up 244 rushing yards to Auburn last week. They gave up 210 to LSU. They gave up 166 to Tennessee, and a lot of that in the first half when they were really struggling with Tennessee. Alabama's defense, for as good as they are, they're going to have to be even better than they've been recently. Look, I think everybody can agree they should have lost last week to Auburn, right? And a big part of that was they just could not. And Auburn's a one-dimensional team. They just couldn't. They had no answers for Auburn's run game. So I think the challenges right now are they have to clean that up in a rough week with such a big emotional win and essentially a Hail Mary from Milroe and all that. But they need to fix this run defense. They need to make Georgia one-dimensional somehow. And then, to be honest with you, if anybody has an answer for Carson Beck, it's Nick Saban. Because if he doesn't, I don't know who does. This is such a challenging game, and now that Brock Bowers is back and healthy too, this is going to test the limits of this Alabama defense. And I again, like with Penix, right before, blitz him, see what happens. I don't have an answer for Carson Beck right now. I just don't. He's such a good decision maker. He's so darn accurate, and he gets rid of the ball so quickly that I think, you just play fundamentally sound football, or your offense, Milroe and their offense is just going to have to be better than this Georgia offense that just has not slowed down at all.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Carson Beck and went into that because I wanted to go to the other side of the ball. And, we talked about in the Oregon-Washington game how the 2 Heisman Trophy candidates, 2 of the 3, are in that game in Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. If you're looking for the Heisman Trophy candidates for next season, it's this game, Carson Beck and Jalen Moreau. Those are your 2 Heisman Trophy favorites. Now, there is a chance that Beck declares. I don't think it will happen, but there is a chance that he declares because right now I think we have him as a second-round pick, I believe, on our big board. I have to check, but
that sounds right.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think there's a chance he declares, but you look at next year's class. I don't know who the top guys are, like Shedeur Sanders, Beck, and then Drew Allen. There's a lot of unknowns. Whereas this year it's loaded at the quarterback position. So I can see Carson Beck saying, "Hey, I can go back next year and be a top 5, top 10 pick, maybe even the number 1 overall pick if I go back." So I think he might go back. And I think these are your 2 Heisman Trophy favorites for next year. Because Jalen Moreau, man, he's grading out. He and Carson Beck are right now 2 of the 5 highest graded quarterbacks in the country. This is why what I want to talk about for the matchup is can contain Jalen Monroe. So, Dalton, Georgia has played 11 FBS games this year. The only one they haven't was Tennessee Martin, I believe, in the first game of the season. So, taking that game out, they played 11 FBS games. 4 of those 11 games, Georgia has won by 10 or fewer points. All 4 of those games were the best that a quarterback has rushed against them. The first game was Peyton Thorne when Auburn only lost by 7 to Georgia. Peyton Thorne had 107 rushing yards against them. Brady Cook, when Missouri lost by 9 to Georgia, he had 52 rushing yards against Georgia. Spencer Rattler, when they lost by 10 to Georgia, he had 50 rushing yards. When Haynes King of Georgia Tech just last week, Georgia Tech lost by 8 points to Georgia, and Haynes King had 42 yards on the ground. So whenever Georgia's played a close-ish game this year, 10 or fewer points they've won by, it's been to a dual-threat quarterback. All 4 times were to the best dual-threat quarterbacks they faced this year. Jalen Monroe is by far the best dual-threat quarterback that they're going to face this season. I think he's the best quarterback they face this season, period. His 87.5 rushing grade this year trails only Jaden Daniels among FBS quarterbacks 12 rushing touchdowns, are tied for second as well. Like I said, he's 5th in the country with a 91.4 grade. He's also 2nd in the country with a 9.7% big time throw rate. So it's not like Georgia can stack the box and just take away the ground game between Monroe and McClellan and all the running backs there by that, because then he could go over the top on you. He's got a big arm. He's made huge throws for them this year. So you're going to have to put a spy on Jalen Monroe, I think, the entire game. And even that might not be enough, man. So that's the key for this game, is because every close game Georgia's had has been against a really good dual threat quarterback. And this is by far the best dual threat quarterback you've faced all year. So this can be a lot for Georgia's defense to handle, I think, in this game.
Yeah, Milroe is an incredible problem improvising, and when he gets his shoulders north and south, man, good luck. You mentioned Jaden Daniels ahead of him. It's the same with his feet. It's the same type of ability. It is this guy's got like track speed. It's nuts, and at his size, I don't even know how to describe that. It's not even fair. But no, you're right. And Kirby Smart's defense, and even Alabama's defense is now they've always been like this. The traditional run game, just turning around and handing it off, you have no shot. Now, obviously, a team like Bama might have a shot, biggest O-line in the country, and Jason McClellan's really good, and they might have a shot to be somewhat productive. But I think even the design game, the read option game, some bootlegs, getting Milroe on the move, and we've mentioned, I think another element of that, Max, is that we've talked about all year that Georgia's pass rush is just not as great as it's been in past years. Their leader in pressures has 21 pressures on the season. I think that's a part of it, is these quarterbacks have time, and the way Smart's defense is it's not like totally man coverage all the time, but it's got like this like pseudo man coverage kind of thing where, you get to play all that man coverage. People's backs are turned. There's a lot of space, and Kirby doesn't change it a whole lot. What he adds in every week is like different blitzes and twists to mess up the offensive line, but he doesn't add much in to account for that. So Milroe as a runner is the most dangerous weapon for Alabama in this game. And it is, if it's a tight game, especially late, obvious passing situations, look, Milroe's going to go to it. You already know Saban's talking to him about it. Look, you got room here to work with. Mm-hmm. Take it. To do whatever it takes to win this, just like last week. Do whatever it takes to win this game. And I think his legs are a huge problem it's the biggest problem for Georgia in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, Dalton, who wins the SEC title game and probably punches their ticket to the college football playoff?
I like the Bulldogs. They if we're doing the eye test thing, they do look like the best team in the country again. And I think we just at the beginning of the year we did not expect Carson Beck to be this good. His decision making, his accuracy, it's kind of the thing I've gotten to the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm like, boy, he sure looks like an NFL quarterback, doesn't he? I mean, it's just until I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there's a concrete answer right now to stopping this with McConkey and Lovett and Bowers and everything he has around him, Edwards and Milton in the run game. And I think that's a big thing too. If Georgia gets balance in this game, which I think they have a better chance to get some balance in this game. The one thing I like Bama with McClellan and Milroe, but I don't know if their receivers also are going to be up to this task. They need Jermaine Burton to be really good. Isaiah Bond, he made the play. He made the big play last week, but they need their receivers to be better too. I wasn't all the way around too impressed with their passing game last week, and it's always a work in progress. And Milroe with the benching and coming back and all this, but I like Georgia's balance. Alabama's really dangerous with their secondary. It's going to be the biggest challenge of the season for Georgia, and with Milroe's legs. But and this honestly, for as good as these two defenses are, I won't be shocked at all if this is a high-scoring game, and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Georgia 38-34. You got athletes across the board, and I'll tell you one. I think a big one too is Alabama over the middle of the field and in the slot. You can attack them a little bit more. And I think with as much as they move McConkey around and even Bowers, much as they move Bowers around on the inside, I think if you get those two guys starting to work on Alabama's linebackers, then Georgia's got a big, big advantage. I don't see Georgia throwing outside the numbers a whole lot in this game. At McKinstry and Arnold, that's as good as it gets. And I don't think that's where Georgia's going to want to go here. They're going to want balance. They're going to want to work behind linebackers, crossing routes, the intermediate stuff that Beck is just an absolute expert at throwing. I think the things, the few spots where they can attack Alabama's defense works pretty perfectly into how Georgia wants to run their offense. I like the Bulldogs.
All right. I'm glad you picked Georgia because I'm picking Alabama, man. I'm glad that we went different on Washington, Oregon. I'm glad we're going different on this one.
You want the madness is what you want.
I want
the
madness this week, dude. I really, when I was diving, because I initially thought I was picking Georgia too. And then when I dove into the numbers and I saw how much, when I was like, okay, let me look at the close games Georgia's played this year. What's been the constant theme? And if there is a constant theme. And then when I saw the dual threat rushing quarterbacks, like, oh my gosh, like this is the answer. And I also think on the other side of the ball, I think Alabama's secondary is the best in the country. I think if Carson Beck's going to look human against any secondary this year, it's Alabama's. And also, Alabama's got a really good front seven as well that I know Georgia's offensive line is one of the best in the nation, but I think that can present problems too with Braswell and Dallas Turner getting around the edge on Carson Beck. That's another great NFL matchup if you see Dallas Turner against Marius Mims. It's a great one to tune into for your NFL draft fan, but I think I trust Alabama's defense more, honestly, than I trust Georgia's defense to be able to slow down the offense. So I got Alabama 30-27 in this game. I think, like I said, Milroe's dual threat ability proves to be too much for Georgia to handle. And I picked Texas to win in a blowout before. The committee is going to have a very interesting debate between Alabama and Texas as to who gets in that final spot. And even Georgia is probably still alive in that conversation as well. So 30-27, I got Alabama winning this one and creating a very interesting college football playoff discussion for Sunday.